My name is Leah. I'm the administrative assistant here at Africa Fire Mission, and I just want to welcome you all to today's training. We're really excited. This is actually a part 2 of last week's training, and so we have Mark back with us, and so we're really excited to listen to his presentation today. It's going to be a really great one, so everybody get ready for that. But before we start, I do have a couple of announcements to make. The first one is just to please stay muted throughout the training. It's really helpful for everyone else who is in the training right now, and also because this is recorded and we post it for free online. And so if you ever want to go back and watch that, refresh your minds, or if someone wasn't able to make it to today's training, you want to send it to them, you can also do that. And I also apologize. It's a little hard for me to speak right now. I do have a cold, and so if I sound a little nasally, that's why. But I do just want to also remind everybody that I will be giving out certificates after today's training, and you'll get that certificate if you attend 70% of the training, and that usually looks like 45 minutes if the training is an hour long. And I see that Richard is in here. Richard, did Jose ask you to do a word of encouragement today?
Yeah, good evening, guys. Hopefully everyone is well. Sorry, you get better. I know it's cold outside there.
Yes,
Here
it
we are
is.
doing. I think we're doing on cold summers in our place, so it's a little bit hot. It's a little bit cold, but we're doing well. We thank God for that. Yeah, we're going to do a small. I will take some few minutes to do the encouragement, and also during tea time. We'll have a walkabout on what is happening on the symposium today. The whole of from it started on Monday till today, it will go through till Saturday. I'll be with them on Friday, Saturday. I'm actually working. I'm on my way to work. So today's encouragement is it's something that we always do normally. It is. I was going through the Bible. I always love reading the Bible, and it happened that I had this place that says, "What do I do to
It seems like you've cut out, Richard. Oh, are you? You might be back. You're really cutting in and out. Alrighty. Well, we might just have to move on from the word of encouragement. I'm sorry about that. And hopefully,
Sorry,
Richard. Oh no, you are fine. That's okay.
yeah, sorry. It's the road is so noisy, so I had to mute a little bit. So what I'm saying is, it's on the story of Abraham. He was told to he always encouraged himself by the word. You read the Bible, we read the Quran, we read the word of God, and it always is a source of encouragement to us, because by the end of the day we need to trust this God. We need to trust in God that tomorrow will be a better day. So in everything that we do, in short, in everything that we do, let's feel encouraged. Let's feel like we're doing the work of God. I was looking at it also in this perspective of the Good Samaritan law. If you look at the Good Samaritan law, it applies in the field of medicine and also in the field of firefighting, where we always have the intention of doing good things, and that is what protects us. And by the end of the day, God will always cover us. He will always send his angels to come and be with us. So by that, we can have a short prayer so that we can start the meeting. We start the training. So let's go ahead and pray. Thank you, everlasting Father. We come before you this evening. Father, as we continue with this training, we pray that you open our minds, that you show us the grace, that you show us, Jehovah, what it takes to be a firefighter, or it takes to be a medic on board, Jehovah. In the mighty name of Jesus, bless each and everyone, bless each and every family that is represented here today. And for those of us who are not feeling well, remember, Ria is not feeling, she has a cold. We pray healing upon her life. We pray healing upon everyone who is not feeling well. In the mighty name of Jesus, we do pray and believe. Amen. Ria,
Thank you so much for that, Richard.
you much.
As always, we're just very appreciative, and it's always so great to hear from you. So thank you. And I'm going to hand it off to Mark now.
Okay, everybody. Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome. Good to see you folks again. It's been a long week since we spoke last. You're going to notice I'm wearing a funny thing called a winter hat. That's because right now we got our first snowfall for the year. We got snow outside right now, and it's kind of cold. I'm actually on site today at our training facility, and we're doing a live burn class for the recruits, which is why I'm in a different location from where I usually am, and why I'm wearing my winter hat and my other garb to go back out. When we're done with you guys, I head back out and keep going into the burn building and get things going. But it's good to be here with you again. And today's topic, as you probably been versed on, is on the topic of reading smoke. And it's ironic because we are doing a live burn today, and it was my hope that I could actually have taught this class with the burn building behind me and the smoke coming from it to help kind of illustrate some of the points that we are going to be talking about. But unfortunately, we got a delayed start because of the snow. It's kind of slowed things down for us getting things set up. And as a result of that, we're about an hour behind our schedule over here with that. So having said that, we are going to just do the old-fashioned PowerPoint presentation, and I'm going to very soon get that brought up. I will also let you guys know that because I am on site, there'll be a lot of noise in the background from other people walking around doing things and everything else. So just ignore the background noise if you can, and just kind of focus on my awesome voice. I'll make you go right to sleep as we talk about how to read smoke. All right. So let me get my my screen shared with you. Okay, so there we go. We got our title slide up. I'm gonna take off my hat because it's getting kind of warm in here with the door being closed now, and put on the old reading glasses so I can see what I need to talk about. So, reading smoke. From last week's lesson that we looked at, this does kind of tie in with regards to that in terms of the go or no go question that we have to ask ourselves. And if you remember from that class from last week, part of the question we're asking involves doing a size up and looking at the conditions of the building. And those conditions of the building are going to tell us if we can or cannot make that entry to, of course, make that rescue, which is our primary focus. We're going in to do the rescue as well as fire suppression. But more importantly, we're here to do the rescue. But that size up tells me if I can or if I cannot go in. And part of my size up is going to involve, as I said last time, reading the conditions, which is looking at the smoke that is exiting from the actual structure, as well as location of fire and so on. And this is quite the reading smoke is a art. It is based on another person who is Watson from Colorado, and he's the one that put the time and effort in over a number of years in terms of gathering information, gathering data, looking at different videos and pictures, and trying to pinpoint and categorize as we'll see here today, how we can read smoke and how the smoke can tell us things that we can use to our benefit. And so here we are today, probably about 20 years later, after him doing all this research and doing all this work, and we now have this topic that we can look at, and we can use it to our advantage in regards to structural firefighting. I'm gonna skip to right here. So in terms of reading smoke, and before I get started, when you get to the end of our classroom time today, I'm gonna apologize right now. I'll have to go right away. I can't hang out for tea time, so I gotta get back to the class here. So as soon as I'm done, I'll be saying au revoir and goodbye, and then I'll see you guys later down the road at that point. But reading smoke does hinge upon fire dynamics, and knowing and understanding how fire behaves and why it behaves the way it does. And just as one point here is, it is a chemical chain reaction. I'm going to bring up all my points so you can see everything here, and it's easy for us to, here we go. All right, it is a chemical chain reaction, and it does hinge itself or base itself upon a basic premise of what fire is. And in the right of the screen there, you will see what we call the fire triangle, or as you call it now, the fire tetrahedron, which shows us how we have 4 components that make up fire and how it actually behaves and how it sustains. You have to have, of course, air, which is your oxygen. We have to have heat. A heat source, what's going to be blending into the actual burning process. And that 4th component is going to be the chemical chain reaction. And when you have all 4 of those kind of combined together, we're going to have, of course, combustion. That's where we have visible fire that is combusting, and we can visibly see it. We take one of those 4 components away, and we don't have that complete combustion. We can still have heat, a heat fuel, but because maybe you're lacking air, we don't have that chemical chain reaction, for example. And we'll see this later today in our topic of how we're going to have sometimes what's called vent-limited fires, where that's exactly it. The lack of air that's available, but we still have a high heat source. We still have lots of fuel, and the chain reaction just waiting to initiate as soon as the air is reintroduced at that point. So there is that fine balance of having all these 4 things present that then will produce smoke as well. Again, basics, our 4 phases of fire are hinged upon the incipient phase, where this is where the fire is ignited, and then it starts to grow at that point. That's the growth phase. And then it goes into the fully developed, and then into our decay phase. And we're going to see a lot of different smoke. You'll see different smoke patterns and how smoke appears based on the incipient stage, the growth stage, the fully developed stage, or the decay stage of fire development. And each of those smoke conditions do tell us and can indicate what stage of fire we are at, whether we're at that fully developed or growth. And that smoke will tell us, we can see it and say, okay, yeah, right now we're at this phase of the fire. And it can also tell us too, as I mentioned, what element of that tetrahedron is missing based upon the color, the velocity, and so on of my smoke. So it does help us give a basis for interpreting what we're seeing when we do pull up on scene, and I'm visibly looking and seeing what I've got in front of me. So, fancy term that you may have heard before, you may not, and it's part of dynamics, fire dynamics, and that is the heat release. And what is that? What is the heat release rate? Basically, it is what's being produced energy-wise from the fuel load, right? So it's energy that's being produced or released over time based upon our fuel load. And if we have a concrete room, a room made of concrete entirely, and there's nothing at all inside that room except one cardboard box, it's a very small, low fuel load, if it catches on fire, the heat release rate, the energy being produced by that cardboard box is very low. It's not going to be significant in the grand scheme compared to, say, that same concrete room that may have, say, a sofa couch, or may have a bed with a mattress and carpet and a dresser and other things that make it a habitable room. If all those contents were to catch on fire and it be ignited, then the energy being produced by it is going to be a lot greater, of course, lending into a higher heat release rate from those fuel loads. And so when we look at smoke production is the result of what's burning from the fuel loads and the heat release rates that are being released when those fuel loads do break down and contribute to the fire production within that particular box. As you see in this little graph that we have on our slide here, what we're showing you is from the time the incipient stage begins with our fire, at the very bottom there, where the red line meets the black, intersecting two lines, no heat release rate, 0. And as you start to grow, fire growth starts to go up with the red curve. We increase the heat release rate until we get to that fully developed point. And at that fully developed point is where you have the maximum heat release rate that will take place. And as we go back down into my decay, which is where the fuel load is being burned up, and there's nothing more to burn, that heat release rate starts to dissipate or decrease all the way back down again to almost nothing. What contributes? You see this, the dotted line that kind of follows that dark red curve, is that if I'm ventilating the structure as I need to, or if I can reduce that heat release rate because I'm, in essence, releasing it through my vented opening. I'm making a chimney. And by doing so, I'm able to vent out and release that heat release rate as I need to. Okay, some more dynamic definitions to help us understand why smoke behaves the way it does. We have 3 different planes that we're going to see within a particular fire itself. We're going to see that thermal layer, which is going to be at the highest point of our room, which will contain the most heat, the most heat release rate being produced and being exposed to. We're going to have the interface layer, which is that black dotted line there on the slide. That's where the hot gases and the fresh air start to meet at that point. And then the neutral plane is based on the pressure difference between heated smoke, the heat above, and the cooler air below. And that's that neutral plane, that defining line of air. And we're going to see those layers and those planes when we're looking at the smoke leaving the building. We'll see the neutral plane, we'll see the thermal layering, and we're going to also see the interface of the fresh air and the hot gases meeting at that window or in that door when the smoke is leaving the actual structure itself. As being built up, and that smoke starts to push down from the ceiling towards the floor, you're going to start seeing that neutral plane also go with it. It's going to start lowering itself down and keep lowering until we do something or something else happens because of what's taking place within that particular environment. The neutral plane is the big indicator telling us what's happening within that building as far as the intensity of the fire and the location of where my fire might be. That neutral plane, depending upon where it is, if it's up high by the window height, it's a very small, no heat kind of fire for the most part, as opposed to a neutral plane being right down to the floor of the door, for example, or the entire window is just pushing smoke out from top to bottom. There is no neutral plane. And that tells me I got a very hot or very high heat release rate being produced, and there's a lot of volume and velocity of that smoke trying to push itself out. because the neutral plane is no longer there, or it's very low within that opening. Okay, so how does smoke move? Well, I'm going to tell you a basic saying that will tell us this really easily. Smoke always goes from the high pressure zone to the low pressure zone. Smoke always moves from the high pressure zone to my low pressure zone. What do I mean by that? If you can picture a balloon, if you guys have balloons or seen balloons, if you picture a balloon, right now, if I had a balloon sitting at a table with no air inside of it, it's just going to lay flat on the ground. But as soon as I start to blow into the balloon with my air, and I fill that balloon up, that balloon's under pressure. And within that balloon is the high pressure zone, and outside the balloon is the low pressure zone. The same thing is what's happening on the fire in the actual structure. We're going to have the high pressure zone within the structure, and we're going to have the low pressure zone outside the structure. So as my fire starts to get warm and starts to build in that growth phase and gets to the fully developed phase of its fire development, because of the heat and energy being produced within that building or room, it's producing a higher pressure, atmospheric pressure within those four walls and within that roof. And outside the building is the low pressure zone. And so as you see there in the second point, smoke wants to seek out the path of least resistance. And so it's going to find that low pressure zone. And it's going to find it, no matter where it is, it's going to find it the quickest and the easiest way from where it is to where it's got to get to, which is outside the low pressure zone. And that's going to be anything. It's going to be your window openings, your door openings. It's going to be openings in the walls, cracks in the walls. Any access that the smoke can get out to that low pressure zone, it's going to seek it, and it's going to head towards it, and it's going to go out that way. That's how smoke moves, and that's the reason why it does do that. So when you look at YouTube videos, or when you've pulled up on scene to a burning building, ever ask yourself why is there so much smoke? Why does smoke always leaving the structure? Well, it's because of that high pressure and low pressure zone dynamic. It has to seek out that low pressure zone and will move towards it, and will always get to it. It's also influenced by compartment size. So what does that mean? That means the smaller the room, it gets filled up very quickly, compared to a larger room where it may take a bit more time to fill that volume of it up with the smoke and heat. And so if it's a large structure, it'll take more time for that to occur compared to a smaller room, a smaller structure. You're going to have that smoke and hot gases leaving and emanating or exiting out the building a lot quicker, and with more velocity and more veracity as well, because it needs to get out, but has a small little space to try and work in, but also try and be protruding out. With smoke movement, we're going to have what's called flow paths, which ties into how smoke does move. All right, a flow path is that point of where the smoke is going to a new vented opening. And there's two terms that we can look at with respect to what a flow path is and what we're going to see, what we can see when we have smoke leaving a building. We're going to see these two flow paths occurring. The one is unidirectional. That means that there is only one direction that either the smoke is all going out or there's lots of air all coming in. So picture a window in a house. The window is open or broken, and all the smoke from that building is pushing out of that window completely from top to bottom, side to side. That's a unidirectional flow path. A bidirectional flow path is where we have two complete different planes of that heat and smoke at the top pushing out and exiting, and on the bottom we have the fresh air coming in to feed that fire and to bring air in to keep it combusting, as it were. Right? That's a bidirectional flow path. So you're going to see those two when you look at different pictures and videos. When you show up on scene and you're looking at how do I read the smoke, you can identify, is it a unidirectional flow path or is it bidirectional in terms of there's two distinct layers, something going out in the bottom, something's drawing in, or is it all pushing out the entire opening of that particular structure? What also has an impounding effect on our flow paths and smoke movement is going to be the wind. A natural phenomenon. It had the winds every day, depends on how windy it might be. It could be a very low wind, could be a very high wind as far as the speed of it. And that's going to have an impact on how smoke moves. When we have a very high windy day, it's now called a wind-driven fire, where the wind is actually propelling and pushing. And that might make things worse for us, or it may assist us. So the case where it may assist us is where venting a structure and I cut a hole in the roof, for example. I want to have that smoke coming up and then pushing away with the wind taking it. That's going to assist me with taking away all that stuff away from where I'm standing. Or if I'm going to use, say, windows and doors to help ventilate, open a certain door, open the back door, and that helps to ventilate the structure. I want the wind to be pushing that stuff, that smoke in the right direction for me, so that I'm not having smoke and wind coming in towards me. So that's how wind can be either a good thing or a bad thing. But a lot of times the wind will have all the time the wind will have an effect on us. It's a matter of it's going to be good or bad in the long run. It seems my program here is frozen on me, so just give me one quick minute. It's not. I have to stop this for a second, guys. I apologize. Something's frozen up on me here. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now we know how smoke moves and why it moves and the different ways in which it can move. Let's look at some of the characteristics of its movement. And one's going to be what we call velocity. That's referring to speed, the speed of which my smoke is moving. That's based upon two factors. You see there on the PowerPoint screen. It's based upon heat and pressure. All right, so go back to our previous discussion about low pressure zones, high pressure zones. That pressure, that high pressure zone inside is having an impact on how fast that smoke is pushing out from the building and leaving the structure to go with that low pressure zone. That's the velocity of it. And it's all based upon the heat. That heat release rate that we looked at in the beginning is dictating that, right? So as the fire is growing and going to that fully developed phase of our development, we're going to have a lot of energy production and a lot of heat release rate being produced. And because of that intense heat increasing and rising up, that's going to have a compounding effect on the increase in speed of that smoke leaving and exiting the structure. So as that combustion process is continuing, as things are developing and growing, the compartment pressure is getting higher and higher and higher, and it increases in terms of the velocity of that smoke leaving when it needs to get to that low pressure zone. When you have a very high speed or very fast exiting smoke, it's very angry and leaving very, very quickly. That's an indicator of very high heat and that you're near the seat or the location of the action, that we're getting close. or it's right near where that smoke exiting is. It's right there. It's very, very fast, very turbulent, and very angry pushing out. We're very near that high location where the fire is going to be. So we mentioned last week some terms. One was laminar smoke, which is compared to turbulent. Laminar is very slow, easygoing. It has all day to kind of leave the building, whereas turbulent is very fast and very angry and very chaotic. And you see in that picture you have here, that's an example of not laminar, but turbulent, very angry smoke that's leaving that building quite quickly. When I have a lot of heat and a lot of pressure that is present, all right, it's pressurized, so it's gonna be very fast, turbulent smoke from openings, higher heat equals higher pressure within that compartment, within that structure. The smoke itself is going to be somewhat uniform and a constant speed of always just nonstop leaving. There's no intermittent breaks of a bit of smoke and then nothing, and that a little bit more, a little bit longer, some more smoke. It is a constant feed of smoke that is exiting, because the materials within that firebox in that compartment are absorbing heat and themselves are breaking down and giving off the gases to mix with the air and the heat, and they lend into the combustion process. So that's why we had that growth, and that growth going into my fully developed phase. We have those materials breaking down and contributing, and that's why it's consistent, it's constant, it's nonstop. So what does this type of smoke tell us, right? As I mentioned, it tells us what stage of the fire we are at, which would be in this case the growth going into fully developed, and it might tell us the location of where that fire just might be as well. But the one question we do have to ask is, based upon what I'm seeing with the smoke, where is that fire going to be moving? Because fire will travel, it will move if we don't put it out right away. So based upon smoke movement, I can kind of sometimes tell or predict where that smoke, that fire strike quick. Okay, volume and density. Another two more terms that we do utilize a lot with respect to reading smoke, right? So besides the speed of it, we're looking at how much volume and how dense or how thick is that smoke as well. And again, volume and density point us to the potential location of where the fire is going to be. All right. Again, combined with velocity is going to tell us hopefully that location as well. A large volume of smoke that is leaving the structure will of course indicate a much more much heavier, much larger fuel load that is burning, right? Heavy fire means lots of fuel that's being broken down and is emanating or exiting a lot of smoke out of that building. So the fuel type that we have in that structure is going to influence the volume and density of my smoke. If you look at modern furniture, which is all made out of plastic, they're called hydrocarbons. A lot of plastics, hydrocarbons, that's going to be a very, very heavy fuel load that when it does ignite and combust, it gives off a lot of volume and density of smoke compared to our legacy stuff, which might be like your old-fashioned pine table or pine chairs or natural wood that may be used for furniture, which has no finish, like a lacquer or paint finish on it. That's going to give off a lot less heat release rate, and a lot less density or volume of smoke will be produced from that. So when we do see a lot of volume and a lot of density as far as the smoke leaving the building, that's going to indicate to me we got a very heavy fuel load. And most likely with our day and age today being 2022, it's going to be mostly modern furniture, modern fuels, hydrocarbons, plastics that are combusting and burning and giving that high heat release rate. And because of a lot of hydrocarbons and plastics, those materials break down a lot quicker than the traditional or legacy wood that used to be used way back before I was even born. At that time, they took a long time to break down, but with our modern plastics, it happens very quickly and very intense. Okay, again, that volume and density is also dictated by the compartment size. It can be heavy smoke or light, right? Heavy in volume, heavy in density, or it could be light in density and light in volume. And that's sometimes dictated by the size of my compartment. So you see a picture of a large commercial industrial building, it has very high ceilings, a very large footprint. And because it's so large and so big, that might be light smoke because it's got lots of space inside to spread out before it starts to seek out that low pressure zone. Compared to a small 10 by 10 bedroom, 10 foot by 10 foot bedroom, very small in compartment size, that smoke and heat will fill that room very quickly and will start to find my low pressure zones a lot quicker and faster, lending into a heavy or heavier or much more heavy volume and heavier density smoke being produced and leaving that structure. I mentioned that the neutral plane kind of tells us what kind of heat release rates we have. And you see there with those 3 points about the neutral plane that we have, it shows us that when we have the top 1/3 of the opening of smoke leaving, that's the top of the window or top of the door, it's in that early development phase of fire development. If we have the half, the neutral plane down to the half of the window, we are at that later development. We're almost getting to that fully developed or getting to that fully developed phase of the fire. And if you have the bottom 1/3, that's the smoke right down to the bottom. As it says there, we're getting into very heavy involvement and we're getting into that flashover phase that happens just before we have fully developed. So again, that's how that neutral plane kind of tells us. And volume and density is that indicator with where it is within that opening, top third, half, or bottom third, that's telling us, hey, we're almost at the flashover phase, or we got a bit more time because we're kind of at the high point of our window with the volume and density. So we have a bit of time before we get to that flashover phase, but it's getting there. We're almost there, but be forewarned, it's coming. Okay, so color, the color of smoke is also an indicator for us that we can utilize and use to help us read and to get some clues as to what's happening within that structure. And smoke can be clean or it can be dirty, right? What's clean smoke? Clean might be white, gray, compared to dirty smoke being thick, dark, black. That's dirty smoke. And those two contrasting colors are telling us a lot. If it's clean smoke, that means you have a very low heat release rate. Things are still kind of growing. There might be some water application. There could be some moisture in the air, some moisture content within the structure. Moisture content that is still present. That's lending into the fire not growing as quickly. So it's got white kind of smoke or sometimes gray. Or if I'm putting water onto the actual fire, you will be able to see that smoke go from black to white because I got water introduced, and that moisture content is what's lending into the white coloring within that smoke. Dirty smoke, as I said, it's thick, dark, black. And when I thick, dark, black, dirty smoke, that means I have a lot of heat being produced. And we're approaching that flashover phase of our fire development. And it's very angry as well, right? So the color can tell us a lot. If it's clean or if it's dirty. Okay, so white smoke, as I mentioned, is where we're going to have that incipient stage, or I have moisture content, or I'm applying water. And you can see there an indicator in that picture of that smoke there is kind of a whitish gray kind of color. So we do have water being applied, which is what's helping that smoke color change from maybe all black to now going that whitish grayish kind of color. And if any of you are in command as the incident commander on that particular fire ground, you can read that color and smoke and know that my guys are now putting water on the fire, because I can see the smoke change, and that tells me that we're winning, as opposed to it's constantly black, 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 and there's no change. It's getting worse. I know then I'm losing the fight and have to then regroup and do something else to try and get my upper hand and win again. Okay, there's that black smoke, as I mentioned, right? Black smoke, as you see in the picture there, it's very dark, very thick. That's telling me that we're in that growth flashover phase of or almost fully developed fire. And we got a lot of heat release rate being produced, a lot of energy production that's also taking place within that compartment as well. Brown smoke, right? Sometimes we can see brown color, like that's a very ugly color. And that picture we see there is a good picture of brown smoke. It's also very turbulent. It's very angry, has a lot of volume, a lot of density as well of that smoke. So we have the structural components of the structure burning. So black smoke is the fuel load of the contents, like your tables, your chairs, your carpets, your clothing, your beds. That's the contents. The structure is what's holding the building up. Your wood, right? Your 2x4s, wood beams on the roof, on the floor, your plywoods, all that wood product that's being used to hold and build your structure. That's what's burning now. And brown smoke indicates the structure itself is now combusting or on fire. So besides the contents, we now have the structure also. So this could be fire up into the attic space of the building. It could be in the walls, and it's burning up all that structural components of the building. And when we do see a lot of brown smoke, as you see in that picture, and it's got a lot of volume and density, that might be a call for the IC to say, hey, we're going to at this point be defensive as opposed to offensive. We're going to stay out first, put some water on it, and then once you got water on it, then we'll make our way in, and we'll be at that point doing offensive attack from the inside. All right, then we can also see yellow gray smoke. So that smoke has a yellowish tinge. It's not quite brown, it's not black, it's not white, nor is it gray, but it's kind of a yellowish gray kind of color to it. And that's going to indicate to us that we have a lack of air that's being provided to feed that fire. So it's starved of oxygen. And again, think back to that fire tetrahedron. It needs 4 components to have combustion, and one of them is air. So when I have a lack of air, I go into it, as you see there, vent limited. It's in that brackets. It says vent limited. That means that the fire wants to burn, has the heat, it has the fuel load, it has the chain reaction. It's waiting to kick back in, but it's just missing one component, and that's the air. So it will keep itself kind of in that staged position, just waiting. And when the air is introduced, it takes off and goes. And yellow gray smoke is that indicator of us having a vent limited type of fire. And we're going to see this smoke emanating or exiting from every crack within that building. Again, because it's trying to seek out that low pressure zone from the high pressure zone, but it's also the fire trying to find a source of air to draw air in so that it can then pick up life and take off again. Okay, so looking at the big picture in terms of we're going to read the smoke. We're looking at its velocity, how quickly it's exiting. What's it telling? What's the big picture for us to kind of look at and see? The big picture is all these things are telling us clues or giving us warning signs about what is going to happen or what is already happening. And those warning signs can save us from being caught within those untenable conditions. Flashover being one of them. Right? We don't want to be caught in the flashover. Flashover is an intense amount of heat that is now within that fire room from the ceiling right down to the floor, and it's looking for its next fuel. And if I am caught in that bedroom or in that building, that room, and it has flashed over, I'm now the fuel that's now burning. I'm now going to start burning. So you want to avoid being caught within a flashover. And the smoke can tell us, hey, we're leading up to that point of flashover, or we are already at that point. It's already happened. It's going to happen again, and we're going to be going into fully developed at that point. Right? So flashover, it's going to be fully developed fire and rollover, a lot of volume leaving that structure. You have a lot of high heat with velocity, a lot of speed leaving the building and going outside. It's going to be a very low neutral plane. That's that neutral plane right down almost to the bottom third of the opening, with a lot of thick, dense, and black color smoke leaving that building. That's going to be your flashover warning signs. Another one's called backdraft. Backdraft is where you have the heat, the fuel load, the chain, and when it has air come in, it's a very explosive event where it picks up life and runs, but it's explosive in nature, right? And it can cause a lot of severe injuries to firefight as well as possible death. But when I have a backdraft situation, again, the warning signs are going to be there. They're telling me from the smoke, right? So the smoke itself, it's going to be thin, because what's missing? Air, right? So it's going to be very, very thin in terms of volume, not a lot of density. It might be yellowish gray in color because it's missing that one air ingredient. Flow is going to be intermittent, so it's going to be smoke coming out for a bit, and then it stops, and then you see nothing, and then a little while later, a bit more smoke comes out again, and then stops, and that's that intermittent puffing of the smoke leaving the high pressure zone to your low pressure zone, and combine that with the thin volume and thin density, and combined with the yellow grayish color, tells me as the first arriving firefighter, hey, we've got a possible backdraft that is occurring or waiting for me. If I open this door and bring all this air in, we're now going to be in a world of trouble. So you can see how when we combine and look at the volume of smoke, the velocity of our smoke, the speed of it, the density of our smoke, how thick it is, and the color of that smoke, all those come together to give us clues or warning signs about what's waiting for me behind that door, behind that wall, should I make entry in there. So I mentioned about size up. Right? We have to look at the big picture, excuse me, size up what I'm looking at, and then make a decision on what tactics I'm going to use to try and control what I'm dealing with. And that's part of my evaluation step, where I'm looking at, okay, I got volume. In this picture we have here in front of us, I have heavy smoke on the second floor of my structure. The velocity of the smoke is in the upper windows and lower windows of the second floor. So that's almost the entire opening of that smoke is leaving at a very fast rate, right? The density, it's very thick. And where's the smoke most dense? It's most dense on the outside as it's leaving the structure. Right? And what color of the smoke do I have? I can see I have black, some dark black smoke combined with some white smoke as well, right? Indicating that I may have some moisture content, or that I do have some water being applied on the inside as well, right? I also gotta look at and calculate how fast are the conditions of the smoke changing. Are they getting better or are they getting worse? If the smoke is is still have a fast speed leaving the building constantly, and I'm putting water on it and nothing's changing, then that's not good. But if I'm putting water on it and the smoke is going out fast, starts to then slow down and slows down and becomes, you know, a white color and so on, very slow, lazy moving smoke, then that's good. We're winning the fight. It also can lend into us figuring out, is there going to be any kind of collapse potential? Is that building going to collapse soon based upon what I'm seeing? In this case here at the picture, not quite. I don't think there's collapse potential just yet. But if we go back a few slides, you think about that building with the brown, that thick brown, ugly smoke that was leaving the building, that would be a good indicator. Dense, and which means there's things burning up. Of our thoughts, our time here today. Okay, reading smoke. Yes, it's a fancy term based on science, but folks, looks like I timed out here, but I'm back. So our summation here, right? Understanding the basics of fire behavior, fire dynamics, those four components: heat, air, chemical chain reaction, and fuel load, how they all come together and how they produce my smoke, the movement of smoke, why it moves, high pressure zone, low pressure zone, how materials within that room break down, it's called pyrolysis, and lend into the heat release rates of our structure as far as that fire being developed, and how what's happening on the inside and where is it going, right? Where is it moving to? What's happening with my fire? I want to make sure I look at smoke and I can tell or pick up the clues of the volume. How much volume do I have? How much is it very thick as far as density? How quickly is that smoke leaving? And what's the color of it? Is it dark black? Is it white? Is it gray? The yellowish gray? Is it dark brown color? And those different colors are going to indicate what we possibly can have within that structure there. So I hope you guys take this, and if you can watch it later on, by all means do so. And this is not just a simple one-time thing where you just look at it and go, oh, yep, I'm an expert. It takes practice. So it takes practice to look at different videos and different pictures and try and pinpoint what type of smoke you see there. And then when you actually go on calls yourselves to a structure fire, make sure that you look and read that smoke to get the warning signs and the clues that are being put in front of us to pick up. So thank you for your time, gentlemen. I think for this year, this is my last session with you all. So I do wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year for 2023. And I'm sure I know I will see you in the new year at some point in time when the new schedule comes out. I'll see you then. And until that point, God bless and Godspeed.
Hi, Mark. Hello, Mark. Hi, Mark.
Yes, hello. Do you have a question before he leaves?
I'm Basiliano from
Hello,
Kenya.
Basiliano.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I want to thank Mark. For this section. He has really done a good teaching for today. I wish him all the best for the coming year. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mark. That was a wonderful presentation. And so I'm sure we all really, really appreciated it. I just echo Vasiliano's thankfulness and appreciativeness And so thank you very much for joining us today. And we're going to wrap up and go into tea time here soon. But before we wrap up, I do just want to remind everybody that these trainings are offered for free, and so you are always more than welcome to share them with your colleagues, with your coworkers. You get the same link that you used to join today. That's the same link for every week. And so feel free to join us next week. Sorry about that. And we are going to be going into tea time now, and so you will be receiving your certificates after tea time ends if you attended the 70% of the training, which is 45 minutes. And I will see you all next week. Bye-bye.